Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we explore entertaining and enlightening discussions of the adventure of life and all things good. From science and technology to history and philosophy to leadership and success. We hope to give you a better understanding of the world and skills for everyone to pursue their own adventure.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we talk about all things good in the pursuit of the adventure of life. I'm Harry, your co-host for this evening, morning drive, afternoon napping time, whatever you want to use Bufnagle the podcast for. Rafe's here with me, and I think Rafe has a couple of intro things to say, thanking the listeners, and then you have a special surprise for us today. Is that right?
Yes, I do. But as you say, the first thing is to thank the listeners, and once again, you guys are the reason we do all this. You are the reason we are a global top 10% podcast. As always, you can reach us with an email at bufnagle@bufnagle.com. You can you can share the buff with your friends. There's on your little podcast app thing somewhere, there's like a little box with an arrow and it's like, send it to your friends, send it to your enemies,
Put it in the group chat,
drop it on a random message board somewhere. And
if you miss your ex-girlfriend really badly, just send her the link. In fact, put her in a group chat of all of your ex-girlfriends. I'm sure it'll go great.
If you need it, tell us and we'll get her on the show and we'll get her back for you. That's what the buff is doing these days, is repairing broken relationships. That's what we do. Oh goodness. But in general, leave us a 5-star review, share the love, share the buff. You are the reason we are here, and you are the reason we have accomplished what we have. Harry, if you're doing a lot of podcasts or even listening to a lot of podcasts, you're going to get thirsty. And you know what you're going to need?
What's that?
A smoothie.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I know what you need. You need the BlendJet 2. It's portable, so you can blend up a smoothie at work, a protein shake at the gym, a margarita on the beach, or in your kitchen while you listen to the buff. It's small enough to fit in a cup holder and powerful enough to blast through tough ingredients like ice and frozen fruit with ease. It's whisper quiet, so you can make your morning smoothie without waking up the whole house. And it lasts for 15 plus blends, recharges quickly via USB-C. And best of all, it cleans itself. Just blend water with a drop of soap, and you're good to go. It's all clean. Squeaky clean. You know what? They got all kinds of colors, all kinds of patterns. I like to use just simple black. It's classy.
Well, that's because you're a classy guy, Harry. But you know what? Regardless of what kind of class level you have, there's a BlendJet 2 smoothie making blender for you. So the question is, what are you waiting for? Go to the blendjet.com link in our description below and grab yours today. Be sure to use the promo code BUFNAGLE to get 12% off your order and free 2-day shipping. No other blender in the market comes close to the quality, power, and innovation of BlendJet 2. They guarantee you will love it or you will get your money back. Blend any time, anywhere with the BlendJet 2 portable blender. Go to the blendjet.com link in the description and use the code BUFNAGLE to get 12% off and free 2-day shipping. Shop today and get the best deal ever. There you are, Harry.
Yeah. Well, and you're going to do karaoke for us now, right?
Well, I'm going to do a karaoke. And this is the thing. So this is
karaoke sans music, I think.
And this is a thing that comes into my head every time a certain thing happens. And I'll let you guess what that thing is. Okay. And I'm not going to sing the song because I don't have the piano down, but peering out of tiny eyes, the grubby hands that gripped the rail, wiped the window clean of frost as the morning air laid on the latch. A whistle awakened someone there, next door to the nursery, just down the hall, a strange new sound you never heard before, a strange new sound that makes boys explore. Tread neat, so small, those little feet, amid the morning his small heart beats, so much excitement yesterday that must be rewarded, must be displayed. Large hands lift him through the air. Excited eyes contain him there. The eyes of those he loves and knows. But what's this extra bed just here? His puzzled head tipped to one side. Amazement swims in those bright green eyes, glancing down upon this thing that makes strange sounds that sing. And in those silent, happy seconds that surround the sound of this event, a parent's smile is made in moments they have made for you a friend. And all you have ever learned from them until you grew much older did not compare with when they said, "This is your brand new brother." And those lyrics are the song "The Greatest Discovery," sung by Elton John. The lyrics were written by Bernie Taupin back in the late '60s, and that song appeared on on Elton John's April 1970 Elton John album. And Harry. I first heard that song not in that form, not in the form of the version that's in the original album, but I heard it on the 1986 Live in Australia album. And do people still do that? Do entertainers still do live albums?
Sure, they do. They record live albums, but they now do them as like released videos or shows or tours
or Taylor Swift movies.
Yeah. Well, rack up all the money you can, right?
Get it while you're hot, because it's not going to last forever. But so Elton John he toured Australia in 1985, 86 timeframe, and they made an album from one of the shows, and the song was in the show that night, and it was very well done in the 86 version with orchestral background and the whole nine yards. But the 1970 version was very, very quiet, just a cello and a piano and a couple other, some soft drums in the background and stuff. But it's a great poem, and it's considered, Elton John considers it one of his favorite set of lyrics by Bernie Taupin is this story of a young boy who's obviously he's still very young. He's gripping the rail, means he's still like in a crib.
It's probably 2 or 3 years old, right?
Yeah. That's about time. You're still in a crib a little bit because they don't want you to get out and run around the house unsupervised, right?
Yep.
But and the picture is so rich to me. Here's this crib, and the crib is up against a window, and the window has frost on it, and the boy knows to rub the frost off the window. It's not a very well, these are not double pane, super duper windows. And there's morning air on the latch. And anybody who's opened been around a window in the morning, in the winter, it's cold on the window, right? But then he starts hearing these noises down the hall, and he gets out of that crib and treads down I love that line, "Tread neat so small, those little feet, amid the morning, his small heart beats." And you can see this boy something's going on down here. And you've seen little kids, how they run in their pajamas with their little bare feet.
They pitter patter, and it's the soft little steps that are.
But it's not that, and it's not super even, right? Because they're fighting gravity and and the idea of what do they say? Running and walking are just are falling and catching yourself every time, right? And,
sure. Yep.
And the kid is learning to do that, and large hands lift him through the air. So they, it's either mom or dad or grandpa or Uncle Billy or somebody picks this kid up and shows him this thing that makes sounds, and it's this new baby, and he meets his little brother for the first time, and they are best of friends. And so this song has been in my head since, I don't know, 2023 minus 1986 is some number, 23 for 37 years. And when you were born, Harry, 6-7 years later, early 90s, and Zach was born a year and a half or so later, this was a thing that was in my head. And this is in my head every time I think about an older sibling meeting a younger sibling. And you've seen that happen in your house.
I've seen it. You've seen it happen twice personally to you, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Zach and then Olivia.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that the third one's a little bit different too. I've seen it, and you were there for it when we brought home Andrew and Scotty met him, and suddenly, they don't ever tell you this as a parent, but your firstborn, when you come back from the hospital, is always bigger than you ever imagined.
Because the second born now is so tiny again.
Right. It's for Andrew, it was a 10-pound baby. Well, but he was still small compared to his sister. And you can prep the children however you would like for this is a brand new child, a new soul, a baby brother, a baby sister. But nothing compares to the older child coming in and touching little toes of the baby sibling, or listening to what the baby needs, or the little whimpery cries. And for Scotty, it was a very, very motherly instinct right from the beginning.
Yeah, and I have to say, like I said, I saw this a couple weeks ago with your niece and your new nephew. Your new nephew, as of this recording, is just short of 2 weeks old, and your mom, grandma, stayed with your niece while your sister and her husband went to the hospital to have the baby, and then she was taken to the hospital a couple of days later and had they have a couple pictures. Here's dad sitting on the sofa with the 2-year-old by his side and the new baby in his lap, kind of half on the 2-year-old, and the grin on the 2-year-old is like, look what I got a baby brother. And that's, she still calls him baby brother sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a remarkable thing. We have a very good picture of you and Zach holding Olivia at the hospital the day after she was born. And we had taken you guys, I'm trying to think I can't remember all the details of these things. But you guys are both in your matching pajamas.
Yeah, of course.
Because you were just short of 2 years apart. So you're about 4 and Zach's about 2 and Olivia is just a newborn. And there you are sitting there on, when you put little kids in a big sofa, their legs don't even reach. It's not that their feet don't hit the floor, their feet don't hit the edge of the cushion.
Right. Or just like their heel is off the edge of the cushion.
Yeah. And what's amazing to me is how I've always seen this, and I know some kids aren't like this, and this is probably, when they aren't like this, it's the recipe for your favorite, some kid is going straight to the horror movie kind of thing, but they're always so gentle. And, when you demonstrate to the older sibling that the younger sibling is fragile and needs nurturing care from who's ever older, they model that. They mimic you in doing that. You place them in their lap and they hold their head up and they smile at the camera and they do what you do with a little one. To me, it's just it's a wonderful thing to see. And it was wonderful to see. And it has been, with the 2 that are here in Indy with us. It's a wonderful thing. And I keep thinking of this little song and it keeps coming back in my head. And it's a wonderful thing.
Well, yeah, we saw with Scotty too. She would, Jamie would feed Andrew, and Scotland would go get her baby doll and get a pretend bottle and sit right next to her and do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, that mimesis, that mimicry is that's where we learn how to be human, I guess. And that's one of the first things you see is how to interact with other people, and you start seeing that as a little kid early on. These are all really good stories when this happens. That my mom tells the story that when she was born, so this was like late 1930s, so it was a long time ago. Her older sister was, I think, 4 years older than she was, 3.5, somewhere between 3.5 and 4.5 years older. And they went to have the baby, and then they brought the baby back home, and they said, we have a present to show you. They showed the older sister, my mom, who's still a little tiny baby, and she became very distraught and upset. And they said, well, what's wrong? And she says, well, I don't like her. I really wanted a Hershey bar. And
because when you're 3.5 or 4 years old, nothing matters more than chocolate.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's kind of a funny thing. And what's interesting to me, at least in regard to that, is even though I guess you could say in a certain sense they started off on a wrong foot, but shoot, the lady's 3 years old, all right. But by the time they became, I remember my mom and my aunt being like,
inseparable. I remember that.
Well, just so unbelievably close. And I knew what, like, when, once we had moved out and stuff like that, and these ladies were both in their 70s and like, even way before that, in their 50s, 60s, 70s, all the way through. They would once the telephone companies, you probably don't remember this, but it used to be that if you called outside of your area code, it cost you a lot of money. And then they started reducing the rates of that on what was called nights and weekends. Mm-hmm. And your phone bill, depending on the phone bill and company, you may even see things on your phone bill that say N and W, meaning nights and weekends. And the billing after something like either 9 o'clock or 7 maybe, or 9 or 11, sometime in the night. And then on weekends, like once Friday evening came around, it was on low rates until Monday morning. And these guys would talk all the time, like all the time, 3, 4, 5 times a day. They just pick up the phone and call each other, even though they lived many states apart. And there's a sibling relationship that was, forged with a Hershey bar, but lasted for 8 decades. And these sibling, sometimes you can have sibling rivalries, and I've seen that, but more often than sibling rivalries, I mean, there's always going to be a little bit of competition because you're nearby each other. But I've just seen it be so much. It's generally not whatever the antithesis of sibling rivalry is what I see more often.
I would say that, part of this leads into your siblings are your very first friends.
Yep.
Your first classmates, roommates, buddies, tag-alongs, whatever else you want to call them. And why would you not want the person that's right next to you throughout it all to do well? Right?
Yep.
What it doesn't get you anywhere by saying, "Oh yeah, my brother or sister just isn't as good as I am." You're gonna constantly put down those people closest to you. That doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah, and you've seen situations and sibling relationships make for great storytelling, right? You have a lot of the Bible stories are sibling stories, although they're not always good, right?
Not necessarily great.
Cain and Abel is not a model for familial relations, I guess. But like you said, yeah, these people are your first and primary mates in the sense of, like you said, roommates, dinner mates, housemates, teammates, backseat of the car mates, and you learn to do that together. And it starts with your parents making for you a friend. And it can be a remarkable thing, certainly if you're close in age.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Otherwise you might, I don't know if I've really seen it, but maybe from memory, so you might have an older sister who's 12 years old with a newborn.
Right.
And now suddenly that girl is going to be 18 to 22 years old, and then the other girl is going to be 8 or 10.
Yeah, it's hard to be really great friends.
Really it's hard to be close.
Right.
Just in different phases of life.
Yeah. So I started thinking, well, a couple of things like this. Okay, so one of them is about family size, and we had when I was growing up, I have 2 brothers and a sister, and I have a number of cousins. I mean, my dad's family, he's got 7 sisters and a brother. My mom only has the one sister, so I have a couple dozen cousins. I have a dozen cousins, which is fun because it rhymes. Harry, I knew a guy at our church who has over 100 first cousins.
Yeah, it's got to be 10 siblings aside, right?
Exactly. His mother and father both have about 10 siblings, and each one of them has in the neighborhood of 8 to 10 to 12 kids. And it is just, he said you go to these family reunions and it just takes over, they take over the park. Or the
national parks,
center,
right? Not just
the big ones.
They go out to Yellowstone for the month.
Yeah. So, but those, and I did a little bit of math on this. Okay. Here I did some math because I had heard something like this. Yeah. I heard something like this and I don't remember exactly what I heard. So I made up something akin to it. Okay. So I started drawing some little family trees that if everybody had 4 kids, if all couples had 4 kids, right? So,
sure.
Right. And then, so if you do that, you will have 3 siblings, right? And then you will have, if you're a parent, you're going to have 4 kids and you're going to have 16 grandkids because each of your kids is going to have 4, right? So you have 16 grandkids. But when you start looking like across, I guess I'll say across the family, if you're in a family with 4 kids and everybody else has 4 kids, you will have 24 first cousins. Because your father and your mother each will have 3 siblings, and each of them will have 4 kids. So that gives you 12 on the mom's side and 12 on the dad's side to give you 24 first cousins. which is kind of a fun thing. Unless you get a sibling of your father marrying a sibling of your mother, then they kind of double
The
up.
brother marries the sister, and the other sister marries the other brother.
Right. Or however that works out. So, but basically you're going to have 24 first cousins if everybody has 4. But if everybody only has one less kid, you will go from having 24 first cousins to only having 12 first cousins. You're going to have 6 on the dad's side and 6 on the mom's side. And if everybody only has 2 kids, you're only going to have 4 first cousins. And of course, if everybody only has 1 kid, well, those are pretty boring family reunions. So,
but so there's a lot of people out there that think, oh, I need to not have kids because of economic reasons, or the planet's dying and everything is going to hell in a handbasket, and I don't want to subject some child to the horrors that is the living hell on earth. Right? Doomsday scenario for children. But if you don't have a family as a child, how are you supposed to see good examples? Where is your example for what life should be like? And if for some reason, if every single person out there has a 10% chance of not being a good person, and you've only got 2 role models, well, that's not great. But if you've got 100 role models, you're going to definitely find some good ones.
You're going to find some good ones. You're definitely going to find some bad ones too. But you'll see the spectrum, right?
Right.
And I think that's kind of the point to that. And the other part is like, I can't believe that the optimum should be no people. I can't believe that, because I think the only ones of us out there that recognize the good are people. I mean, the dog doesn't see that. The rattlesnake doesn't see that. The oak tree doesn't see that. They will just continue on doing what they don't do the same way you do, right? They respond to stimuli, but you, with free will, you have a chance and a choice to see and do good. And I just can't imagine that it's better to not have that. And I think about, here's another poem here. And then we talked about this a little bit in the startup, but this comes to mind a lot when I start and I see wonderful things out there. And this is a poem by a guy named Cecil Alexander. And some of you will recognize the first stanza of this poem. But I think what's more important is this 1, 2, 3, 4. There's only it's 20 lines. Okay. It's 5 4-line stanzas. So bear with me for the second piece of my karaoke here. Okay. Cecil Alexander. All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them all. Each little flower that opens, each little bird that sings, he made their glowing colors, he made their tiny wings. The purple-headed mountain, the river running by, the sunset and the morning that brightens up the sky, the cold wind in the winter, the pleasant summer sun, the ripe fruits in the garden, he made them every one. He gave us eyes to see them, and lips that we might tell how great is God Almighty, who has made all things well. And it's that last bit. We have the eyes to see. We can recognize the beauty that is in there. And we're the ones that see that what is out there is beautiful and it's good. And that's why we have to be here.
That opposite is true too, right? If you were out there and you were seeing that there are atrocities, you therefore know that there is good out there. Because you can't have atrocities without having some kind of good comparison to compare it to.
Right. You don't know that it's bad unless you know what is good. So I just think when I see, and I held the little guy today, and he's so small here, his head's still flopping around kind of sideways, and he's sleeping approximately 22 hours a day.
Well, that's the dream, isn't it?
What a dream. And, and people take care of him, and people do everything for him. But there is, like, I guess I can't understand how people cannot cannot see that as a good. And here he is he's not a blank slate, but he's pretty close to that. And hopefully, and I have no reason to not believe this, hopefully his parents are going to demonstrate all those things that are good and well, and his older sister will provide a model for how to relate to other people. So that gets me to this question. Okay.
Yeah. What other models do we have?
Well, okay. So what other models, and how do your kids get along, and how do you get them to get along well, and how do you what do you do for them?
It's got to start with you as the parent.
Okay.
You are the ultimate role model for your children, and your children will emulate the things that you emulate. So I see this every Sunday with Scotty at church. And I've seen this quote recently, and if I had more time than just 20 seconds while I talk, I could probably pull it up for you.
You want me to hit pause?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I've done hitting pause. Go.
And this quote actually comes from our most recent favorite saint, Maximilian Kolbe. All right. So when you kneel before an altar, do it in such a way that others may be able to recognize that you know before whom you kneel.
I saw that same thing today. I saw exactly that quote.
Right. So, and you can even take this from a secular point of view, right? You can say, show your children what you deem to be good in the world and why you believe it is good, and they will understand the same thing.
Well, and you have to live that though, right? I mean, it's one thing to say, I don't know, maybe there's a statue of the local town hero who fought off the Huns in 1124, or something like that, or kept the boy who put his finger in the dike and stopped the water from flooding the town, or whatever it is. If you say this is an important thing that we recognize, but then you go home and you mock it later, that's not going to cut it. And I think the Kolbe quote of make sure that when your child sees you behave in a certain way and you tell him or her why you are doing that, and as long as you're consistent with that, they will recognize those things that are good.
Yeah. So 1, love God.
Yep.
Keep his commandments. 2,
Yep.
Love and respect your spouse. Your children look to that all the time.
Yeah. I've heard that said, that the best way to show love for your children is to love their mother, okay, or to love their father, right? So depending on which side of the line you fall there. So it's, if they see you berating your spouse, or if they see you undermining your spouse, then they will pick that up. They will do, what do they say? Do as I do, not as I say, that kind of thing, right? Or do as I say, not as I do, whatever that quote is.
Except when you're a parent, you have to do as you do.
You have to do as you do, and you have to do it. And what you say has to be the right thing. It is a scary thing to recognize how much power you have over those young minds. And it's a little bit scary, but that means you got to step up. It now is your time.
Yep. And then you follow that up by loving your children themselves, making sure that they are heard and loved, and show your children through your actions that their good is as unique as the manifestation of Imago Dei that they are.
And I think that's where it comes down to your question of what is it? There's the quote from that third Indiana Jones movie where he's getting ready to step across this abyss. It says, take a step of faith, right? And then the question is, it's time to ask yourself, what is it that you believe? And when you have kids, you have to ask yourself, what do you believe? Why do you think that those children are important? Why do you think that's important to do what you do? And if you don't have answers to that, you better get to the library or somewhere and figure out why it is that you believe what you believe. Otherwise, you're going to run into an issue when they are, 9, 13, 15, something like that. And they're going to question, why dad? Why mom? Why do I have to do it this way? And it will no longer be sufficient to say, because I said so. You're going to have some reasons behind that, and make sure you get those early. All right. And that's why I keep coming back to Imago Dei. And that's the starting point for me. And that's where we go.
Yep. And then we also have love your neighbors. That's a very, very golden rule-esque type of situation. Right? We're working with that with Scotty right now. It's, you don't push over your brother, or you don't whine and complain to mom because you don't like it when other people do it to you. It's right. It's toddler-esque, but it has to start somewhere.
And I guess that's the first one, right? That's the golden rule thing, and that would serve a lot of us really well if that were just abided by all the time. Now you've talked, and I think, and your first one was love God and keep His commandments, and that's how you love God, is by keeping commandments. And the next one, love your spouse, love your children, love your neighbors. Those are but that's a little different, because you're not going to follow your wife's commandments or your neighbor's commandments or your kids' commandments. That's not how you love them. You love them by willing their good as the other. And that's a thing that it gets really difficult at times. On the edge cases get kind of difficult. What is the thing that is best for your 9-year-old daughter who's, I don't know, wants to do something silly?
Yeah, I think we all recognize certain capabilities and capacities in every person. Right? I'm not going to go out there and bench 250 pounds right now.
Not today, you're not.
Well, sure. But if I'm a gym going buddy and I know that I have this goal for my other buddy, both of you work together because you know that one other person has the capacity and capability to go achieve great things. Right? And that's a very physical minded sector of your life, but you can apply it to physicality, you can apply it to spirituality, you can apply it to your intellect, to your emotions, and how you love people. Right? We want the greatest good for our neighbors, for our spouses, and for our children. And sometimes that's telling them the hard situations and having hard conversations of, no, you are better than this.
Yeah, that is a really hard thing. I mean, I'm sure you've had that. I remember having that with you when you were about 2. This idea that it is better for you.
Things never change.
Yeah, that's right. And now that you're 32, it's the same. So, but you're sitting there saying you're tired. You will feel better in the morning. You will behave better in the morning. You will feel better in the morning. Everything will be better when the sun comes up tomorrow if you go to good night's sleep. Get yourself in bed, close your eyes, and just let yourself go to sleep. And I remember having that. It wasn't an argument with you because you were 2, so it was just a test of wills at that point. But you have to do that. You have to take away the TV screen or whatever that is. You have to say, no, you don't get ice cream for dinner. That you have to.
It's time to go to bed. We're done reading the book for the 18th time.
Yes, it's bedtime. It's not. And you think about that with little kids, this idea that's a lot of them are in charge, which it's got to be brutally scary. I mean, if they told you, like you're in the Army, if you got appointed, what's the Chief Army guy called? Supreme Commander tomorrow, or Joint Chiefs of Staff guy, you wouldn't know what to do. You're not prepared for that. You're not trained for that. And a 3-year-old that's given permission to decide things that are outside of his or her control, that's just silly. It's got to be exceedingly frightening for them. Kids do well with direction, with structure, and with very, very limited decision making. Would you like
the red bowl or the blue bowl?
Blue bowl. And as soon as they say if they say blue bowl and they switch it to red bowl, then it's over. You get the blue bowl. You pick blue, you got a blue. And you can decide to cry or not cry, but if you're going to cry, you're not be sitting at my table. So that's, and you don't have to be mean. You don't have to smack them around, but you just have to let them know this is not helpful. This is not the way to go. So, all right. So loving them is seeking their good, whether they are spouses, children, or neighbors. And then you have to model the behavior that you want to see. And that means living excellently through virtue.
Yeah. And we've got a lot of virtues. Go back and listen to the podcast.
That's what we do. We try to talk about virtue. Yeah. And in that case, make sure you do as we say, not as we do, because we have, but that is the thing, right? With those are be wise and just and temperate and courageous. And, what do they say? Faith, hope, and love are the ones that will remain.
And, if you do this with the first kid, that first kid seeing the tiny screams and feet and cries of the younger sibling will also model those things for the younger sibling.
Yeah, I guess that's the answer, right? And I have to believe, Harry, that we live in a much we all kind of know these things. Like, we're not saying anything that people don't already know, but I think it's we live in a much more comfortable world now because people know that these are good things, and we're not living with tyrants as parents, I hope. But it's a great time to live because we know what the virtues are. We know how to make these things work. We understand a lot of it. The question is whether or not you have the the fortitude and temperament to follow these things that are good.
Yeah, and I think our first good will be glory to God, to your spouse, to your children, to your neighbors. Seek their good, and you will find your good along the way. It's a lot of acts of charity. So we remind everyone to go ahead and seek the good, live excellently, and flourish, and enjoy the adventure of life.